All right, it's the Betting in the Break show, the show that makes you whole if you are down, or at least we're going to try to. Or if you've made some money earlier in the day on your earlier bets, then we're going to help you take your bankroll and grow it, because it's all about the money when it comes to sports betting, people. I mean, you know, what we're looking for is lots of this right here. Here's what we're trying to do in sports betting. And, well, you know, and then there's things like this. You know, my winning ticket that I still have to get in there from last week or so. They're at Little Creek Casino. Not a huge bet. You know, I'm not going to break your bank there, Scott Peeport. So Scott Peeport, he is the sportsbook manager at Little Creek Casino, and he joins us here. We are hoping shortly to have the Steamroller join us. And again, it is Betting in the Break, and I am your host, Loud Esmond. Scott, I understand things were crazy. Let's talk about that for a couple minutes last night at the book.
Yeah, that Tyson Fury fight, or Tyson Paul fight, excuse me. The crowd was as big as the Super Bowl, and the betting was enormous on it. Everyone was betting for their childhood hero, or in Tyson, and they wanted to see it. I think there was a lot of people that wanted to see him shut Jake Paul up, and that was the fight that. How the fight went is what the odds were telling you. That's a great example last night of the odds were telling you one thing and your heart was telling you another, and you had to decide which way to bet on it. Were you going to bet the odds, or were you going to bet your heart? And we had a lot of people betting their hearts and rooting for Tyson. And but it was great night to be in a sports book, to hear people cheering and yelling, and the undercard fights were really interesting. So it was a good night.
The undercard fights were the draw.
Yeah.
The fact that they were fighting with the 14-ounce gloves made this it made it not a serious fight to me. I'm sorry. It might as well have been a pillow fight because they're wearing training gloves. They're not wearing, the real boxing gloves. Right. It's very hard to do any damage with the training gloves on. It looked like they had pillows on their hands. So it was just kind of silly. And then, of course, Netflix is getting roasted for having so many streaming problems during the fight. I saw these great emojis coming out, and I forget the name of the video game, the boxing video game.
That was Tyson Punch-Out.
That was out in the 80s, and people were saying, oh my goodness, Netflix is playing Tyson's Punch-Out reruns.
Yeah.
It was so bad.
Yeah, he didn't knock out Paul, but he knocked out Netflix.
Yeah, so there's that. All right. I want to get to some picks that are coming up in the 4:30 games, because you've got about 11 minutes to get these in. Tennessee, Georgia, one of the marquee games of the night. Georgia is not what Georgia was. And this is something that happens to people who are public bettors who don't do this a lot. Well, they may do it a lot, but they don't do it very well. And the fact is, Georgia is not what Georgia was. And we have Scott the Steamroller joining us.
What's up, guys?
Great to have you here. I'm talking about the first 4:30 game that we're going to talk about tonight, Tennessee, Georgia. I like the Volunteers here, Scott. Tennessee's catching, I think, 7.5. I've been riding Tennessee all season, especially the early weeks of the season. They had some really high spreads that they just kept covering. They've got the high-scoring offense, but I think people underestimate how tough and physical their defense is. And Georgia has struggled on offense. Their quarterback has not been great, to say the least. He keeps turning the ball over. And Alabama beat Georgia, and Tennessee beat Alabama. So there's obviously a chance that they can do this. And by the way, Tennessee plus 9.5 is where it's going to close. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm with you. I think Tennessee's the better team in this matchup. I really like the way they've been playing. This is a Georgia team that has done really well against kind of inferior competition, although they did get a nice win at Texas, probably certainly the highlight of their season. But, they've had some mixed results in the SEC, just a 1-point victory over Kentucky. Like you mentioned, they lost to Alabama. They lost to Ole Miss. They do get to go back home between the hedges, but I think Tennessee's the better team here. I wouldn't be afraid to put a little pizza money on the money line, but you want to catch that at 8.5 or 9.5, I'm all about it. I think.
I'm thinking of like a 75 plus the 9.5, 25 on the money line is about the way that I would play this in the units.
Yeah.
Oregon, Wisconsin. I do not like the West Coast Pac-12 former teams going back east. They've been terrible, honestly, against the spread. But Oregon is the exception. They have been great on the road. They've been blowing teams out. As an away favorite, they're 3-1 against the spread. They're minus 14 in this game. Wisconsin doesn't score. Their defense isn't that great. So I don't – what's keeping Oregon from scoring 50?
Not a thing. This is a Wisconsin team that gave up 42 to Iowa in their last contest, and they gave up 28 to Penn State. They gave up 38 to USC, 42 to Alabama. This is a team that is not the Wisconsin team we've seen in the past. The only thing that is consistent about this Wisconsin team is they have terrible quarterbacks. But other than that, it's a lot different. They don't really have that bell cow running back, and that defense has definitely taken a step backwards. Not the dominant unit like it was in seasons past. A lot like the Iowa defense this year, where they're still decent but not good. This is a juggernaut Oregon team. They do sometimes tend to play with their food a little bit if they're not focused. But I think being on the road in Camp Randall, I think they're going to be focused and ready to go. They've reeled off some nice wins. They beat a ranked Illinois team by 29. They beat Maryland. They beat Michigan. And they spanked bad teams, and they took care of business against Purdue, Michigan State. So yeah, I think this is the best team in the country right now on both sides of the football. And I'm with you. This is a defense that's only given up 44 points in their last 4 games. Right. I'm not sure where the points are going to come from for Wisconsin. I'm laying the wood here.
All right, Scott Keyport, what do you got on either Tennessee, Georgia, or Oregon at Wisconsin that stands out?
It looks like, for us from the sportsbook perspective, these will be parlay killers for us. Like, we'll need the underdogs because I'm seeing a lot of money on bets on the money line, which our parlays and our straight bets get mixed into those statistics. So I just can't imagine there's a ton of people just making a single bet at Oregon minus 535. So I think these get mixed into the parlays. And so we'll be rooting for the underdogs on that. Other than that, yeah, it looks like the sharps and the public kind of on both sides with you guys for these.
Which means we're wrong. just say whenever that happens, just make
Although,
it wrong.
Man, I don't listen to you guys talk. I'm looking at that over under on this Oregon game at 49.5. Now I'm scared. I'm scared of that number.
Yeah, I think that's
it's like if Wisconsin scores 1 touchdown, then that's going over, right?
Yeah,
that's what that bet is.
Yeah, quite possibly. Texas A&M, New Mexico State. New Mexico State, by the way, has the 128th worst out of 133 teams margin of loss in NCAA football at 19.5 points per game. They lose games on average by 19.5 points. So that means even when they're playing cupcakes early in the season or people at about their talent level, they're still getting blown out. Texas A&M is number 40 at a plus 5.5. New Mexico State averages 20 points per game. Texas A&M scores 28 points per game. That being said, Scott, it's plus 39.5 on New Mexico State. Plus 39.5.
No, I don't. No, don't bring me on to talk about games with 40-point spreads. No, if you want to, I'm certainly not going to back A&M in that spot. You want to put $5 on New Mexico State? Knock yourself out. No, I'm not.
Okay, so you think you like me generally stay away from ridiculous point spreads. Like, what's your breaking point? How many points? And it's like, no.
Well, it depends. It depends on the matchup, but for the most part, low to mid 20s is the most I'm ever going to lay, and I don't like to do that very often. But sometimes there is such a mismatch. But you start getting up into 35 plus, and you don't get many mistakes, Lou. You get you fumble once inside the red zone, or you get you punt blocked or something like that, and you're screwed. You're just skating on thin ice there.
Yeah, they score one touchdown.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You've got a total of 53.5. So you've really got to thread the needle if you want to play. You want to play A&M to cover and the under. Go crazy.
Look at that.
Right.
We don't have a single bet on that game.
Gotcha.
We don't have a single bet.
Good for your customers.
People are feeling like Scott. They're smart folks. They're at Little Creek Casino Sportsbook. There was one game I had earlier this week. It's not coming to me, but I needed over 7.5 points for the one team's offense. And I was on the under on the game. They scored a touchdown within the first 2 minutes of the game.
Kent State.
They never scored again.
Kent State.
Kent State. I had Kent State team over 7.5.
Yeah.
They missed what? 3 field goals?
Yeah, it was brutal.
Like, you gotta be kidding me.
I had an if-then play on there. If Olatowski didn't start, I liked whoever they were playing. Miami, I think, is who they were playing.
Ohio, yeah.
I liked Miami laying the points. If Olatowski did start, I liked the over, and that ended up being the play. He did start. I looked like a genius for the first 5 minutes, and then like a moron for the rest of the game, as Miami of Ohio just kind of couldn't get out of their own way when it really mattered. And like you mentioned, Kent State had a great opening drive, and then they threw the script away, and it was over. So yeah, it was.
So I'm wondering how many people were scratching their heads in my hotel that had rooms near me while I was screaming about the Kent State Miami of Ohio State game.
Time to go to a meeting. Time to go to a meeting. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, well, no, that's if you're betting on British pig racing at 3:00 in the morning, you've got a problem.
If you got an angle. The difference between a problem gambler and a winning gambler is it's the opportunity versus a problem. So if you've got the opportunity to bet on English pig racing, and you got an inside piece of information, knock yourself out.
Well, yeah, if it's a sure thing,
it's a sure thing. It's a lock, baby. It's a lock.
Baby. You got to bet on it. Cincinnati, Iowa State, 5:00 West Coast, 8:00 Eastern. Iowa State and Cincinnati. Both showing some solid defense this season. I think the Cyclones, they allow a little less than 19 points a game. Cincinnati Bearcats, nobody really talks about Cincinnati much. They are giving up 22.2 points per game. Cincinnati has gone over in 3 out of their 9 games. And Iowa State is 5-4 to the over. I like the under here. I just think these are two teams that play very good defense, and I can't name anybody on either one of their offenses except I can almost name the Iowa State quarterback, but it's just not coming to me. So I like the under here.
What's the number on that?
That is
52.5.
52.5.
So let me get this straight. You give us a bunch of over trends and then say, I'm going to play the under.
No. 18.8 points a game for Iowa State Cyclones, 22.2 that Cincinnati gives up on defense. Cyclones give up 18.8. So if they give up their average number of points, you're looking at about a 40-point total. Cincinnati's under 3 out of 9 games. Iowa State is barely on the overs at 5-4. So you got one team that's way under, that's hammering the unders, and one team that is barely on the other side.
Here's my problem with that is you've got 2 different Iowa State teams. You've got an Iowa State team that gave up 29 points in their first 7 games. So they're giving up 7.25 for their first 4 games.
Yeah.
And after that, it's been a little worrisome. In their last 5, they've given up 26 points per game, including 45 last week to the Jayhawks. So I want no part of an under with this Iowa State defense that seems to be fading a little bit. For me, it's over pass, but I wish you the best, buddy.
All right, Kansas, BYU. It's at home. It's at night. BYU just keeps winning. Kansas has only covered the spread once in a loss this season. It's not a lot of points. It's -2. I like BYU in this spot.
That seems tricky to me. That seems really, really trappy. I know KU's getting a lot of credit for their game last week, but to me, this seems dreadfully trappy. I like BYU there. I think that's the play. But I worried. You know how those book.
I
You know how
know.
those
I
books
know.
are.
It can happen.
I was trying to fool us.
Scott, what do you got on this? Any action going forth?
Let's see. What was that? That Iowa State game. I can see a clear difference there where the sharp money is on Cincinnati money line and the under, and the public is on the Iowa State and the over. So that one has a pretty clear trend where the sharps are different than the public. The other BYU Kansas game, everybody is aligned on the money line, but again, looks like a pretty different trend on the point spread where sharp money's coming in on Kansas point spread, but the public's favoring BYU.
All right,
and everybody wants the over.
Yeah, the public loves the overs, just like chicks dig the long ball.
We love overs and washed up boxers.
There you go. Couple of storylines from earlier today. Brian Kelly has James Franklin disease. He cannot win big games. I mean, just cannot, Scott.
Cannot or refuses not to. Which is it?
Yeah, well, I don't know, but I like this idea of James Franklin disease. JFD. It's like if you have a coach that just can't win when it matters, it's James Franklin disease.
Yeah, that's a brutal loss. Although this is a really kind of a psycho Florida team. They looked just dead in the water early in the season, but they've kind of been competitive here against some good teams that you wouldn't normally expect it. They lose by 1 score to Tennessee, and then they jump up, of course, beat LSU today. Yeah, good luck betting them. But you're right. This is an LSU team, and I still think they've got some issues on defense. They've gotten better. Their defense has gotten better than they were early in the season. But when they gave up 41 to Miami, they gave up 33 to A&M. 28 to Mississippi State, which I think equals a total for the rest of the year for that stupid team. But as far as not being able to win the big one, okay. I don't think they have the talent on defense, and they've got some injuries on the offensive side of the ball.
As a Notre Dame fan, I find it entirely ironic that Brian Kelly left Notre Dame because he said he couldn't win a national championship there.
Right.
And I think Notre Dame, if you've seen how they played the last 3 or 4 weeks, they look fantastic. Their defense is incredible, and it sets up a great game next week where Notre Dame plays Army in New York at Yankee Stadium. So I think that is going to be a really fun game to watch, and it's really important because Army is undefeated and Notre Dame has 1 loss. If Notre Dame loses, they're done. They're out.
Yeah.
And if Army takes a loss, they're still alive, but their thoughts and prayers for a spot in the championship dance have taken a pretty major hit as well. I think that's one of the more interesting college games next week. NFL games tomorrow. Here's my question for you, Scott, you giant Chiefs fan, you. By the way, do you have Taylor Swift's number?
Yeah, I got it in my cell. I can't give it to you, though.
You got it from Travis Kelce? He just kind of hands it out?
Yeah, we had lunch. I got
it. Or is it on social media or something?
No. It's my personal relationship with
Gotcha. Chiefs +2 at Bills. I think definitely one of the more interesting games tomorrow, possibly the game of the week. Chiefs +2 at Bills. I do not have a premium play on this game because I hate the Chiefs, and I have to say, I don't think I could bet against them at this point. I'm not sure if they lose a game this season.
Well, talk to me in 24 hours.
After this?
What's that?
Who do they play after this?
They've still got Houston. They've got Denver. They got the Chargers again. They got the Raiders again.
Oh, boy. Wow.
Yeah, not
Denver, San Diego, and the Raiders. I mean, talk about a murderer's row.
Put $1 in the jar, buddy. You just said San Diego.
Oh, thank you. Yes, the Chargers. Yeah, sorry. When you more than half your life they were called the San Diego Chargers or the Washington Redskins.
Oh yeah.
Forgive me. Please, if I occasionally make a mistake.
If you call them the Oakland Raiders, then that's when we got it. That's when we got to worry.
100%. I've still called them the Oakland Raiders. Absolutely.
So
I think I've got enough for a Caribbean vacation in my dollar jar. I'm not betting it. I'm not playing.
Upcoming schedule: at Panthers, barf.
Okay. Yep.
Raiders at Chiefs, barf. Yep. Chargers at Chiefs, barf. Chiefs at Browns, barf. Texans at Chiefs.
Oh, they got Pittsburgh too. I forgot. Yeah.
Texans at Chiefs. They're not very good. Chiefs at Steelers because it's at Pittsburgh.
Mm-hmm.
But still no. The Chiefs defense will shut down that lousy Steelers offense. And then Chiefs Broncos. So, I mean, Matt, I mean, I don't think there's a playoff team on their schedule after the Bills.
Well, Houston.
But Houston will probably win their division. And you're right. The Steelers are still first place in that division. That drives me crazy.
Crazy. It's crazy. Well, they've got the defense. They've got Danger Russ at quarterback. So here's the deal, Loud. You know as well as I do, the Chiefs can play down to anybody's level of competition. This is a team that, even though they're good, they've been decent against the numbers this season.
Don't lose.
I know they don't. But
it's crazy.
They have this thing about being able to play down to the level of competition, whoever they play. Any of those teams except the Panthers, I would think, could jump up and bite them. Absolutely true. We saw what happened in the Raiders game on Christmas Day last year. They had back-to-back plays where they had defensive touchdowns. So they had
chances of that happening again. I
would think pretty slim.
Yeah,
I would think pretty slim. But I personally, I don't think they're going undefeated. I really don't. Of course, I'd love to see it. I just don't think they're going to do it this year. And I've got them tomorrow. I'm going to take the points. You want to, there's some unbelievable numbers with Mahomes as an underdog. I believe he's 12-1-1.
Yeah, something like that. It's crazy.
ATS against the numbers. Yeah. So it's insanity. I know he wins when the Chiefs are down double digits. He's got like a 60% winning percentage. I think the second best record is somewhere like in the low 40s with Brady. So this guy does things, and he is petty. We have talked about this before. He pays attention to social media. He pays attention to the lines, and there is no one more dangerous in the NFL than Petty Pat. He absolutely takes that stuff personally, and he acts accordingly.
The only thing I can compare it to is the Raiders in the 70s and 80s would they'd be down 20 points going into the fourth quarter. And it's like, oh, we got it right where we want them. I mean, they had some of the most incredible comebacks, iconic plays, goes to the post, the fumble Ruski. I mean, sea of hands. I mean, they're all kind. I forget the Browns quarterback who all they had to do was kick a field goal and they win the playoff game in Cleveland, and he throws an interception in the end zone to end the game against the Raiders. It was insane. I mean, the stuff that went on. And then ever since the Tuck rule, it's been all downhill. I blame Tom Brady. Okay. All right, Scott Keyport, you got any games that are taking a lot of action that jump out at you already on the NFL tomorrow?
The Ravens-Steelers game is taking a lot. Looks like they got that sharp money coming in on the under there. Ticket counts favor. It looks like the public kind of the undecided, or they're sort of 50-50 under over, but we got a lot of money coming in on the under. That's probably that, and that Kansas City game are the two most bet games right now. So, gotcha. And yeah, I mean, it's hard to bet against them until they do something, right? When I saw that line,
until they lose, I'm sorry, I can't.
I saw it, and I'm like, I'm sure there's some statistics that make that line make sense, but if I had $5 in my pocket, I could avoid it, but I don't know that I could bet it.
All right, guys, thank you, Scott. I got the Scotts on the show tonight. Scott, the steamroller, Scott Keyport, manager at Little Creek Casino and Sportsbook. I am Loud Esmond for Winners and Winers. This has been Betting in the Break. Catch you guys tomorrow, you degenerate gamblers, you at 4:15 Pacific, 7:15 Eastern for the Sunday night version of Betting in the Break.